Hello, my name is Dmitry Kolvarg. My name sign looks a little bit like this. It's a K and a shake. And I go to school in New York, and I am studying deaf culture and hearing sign language. And my boss Jane asked me, if I'd talk about some culture, the deaf culture in Russia. And why me? Because I am Russian. I'm from there. I've moved here and I've been studying. And so I decided I would help her out. And I've been thinking a little bit about culture. It's been about 3 years since I've moved here. I feel like I've missed some things because I've changed because I haven't been living in Russia. And so I went ahead and asked someone to send me some magazines and some history. And so here's a magazine right here called BEC. And VS, a long time ago, Buddhist and the deaf culture, and they all worked together, and they kind of had this community, and they just worked together. And Victor Palvog emailed me a magazine. I asked him to send me some, and so he sent them to me, and I was looking through them, kind of catching up, and I thought it was really a good magazine. You can see the color is on the front and back, but it's black and white inside. But now, finally, all of it is color. And so that's really cool. So I'm glad he sent me some of those things. So I chose a few stories from there that I really liked about deaf history and Buddhist history. So a while ago, they used to work in the farming, driving the big tractors, tilling things up, and but then the economy and that whole thing kind of just failed, and so now in America, farming, there's deaf-only farming as well. And so at first they thought about buying and selling, and the hearing people kind of resisted that, and no, we don't really want that from you guys. But the deaf kept pushing back, and finally they were able to become successful in that. I also loved an article. I told a story about a man who grew up in the school, and I was really proud of him, and I'm really happy for him. Now he is a popular deaf actor, and deaf people love him. He's hilarious, and he talks about his story in schooling and class, and now he's like me and traveled to America. He's a really good and hilarious actor. I really like that article a lot. Also in Russian culture, we used to be Buddhist. The Catholic Church doesn't allow signing, so Russians thought maybe we can go back to being Buddhist and studying that culture. And so I thought that was interesting how that has changed. That's obviously better for me. Here in America, they do poetry, sign language poetry. You can go to New York and see some of them. In Russia, they don't have that. Deaf people, they don't really do that. That's more for hearing people. Thinking of creative things like that. They don't really do the signing. But I thought it was really cool. I couldn't believe that deaf people can actually write poetry, and good poetry. It's the same as hearing people. I could not believe that. It was so cool. One kind of bad thing that I felt for, it's really a story of this person writing, an emotional story, and he ended up dying. He was such a great writer. Bankov was his last name. And he got old and really frail, and a deaf person would take him to the deaf museum, and he collected lots of things, pictures and old artifacts to put in the museum. So I just feel horrible. So now he just recently passed away, so I wanted to let you know of that. Um, VS log, what is that, and what is deaf culture? And so there's an article on that as well, and there's an 85-year celebration for that, and people start in one spot and they continue going on to another place in Russia, so one end of Russia to another end, and they drive along the bumpy road, their tractor, and they're able to discuss and talk about people and see the things that are going on. And so I thought that was really interesting as well, that they offer that for people to look and kind of see, oh, that's so cool, that's awesome. So I really thought that was a good article on there. There's a picture in there as well. Also, this article, I really liked this one. It was History of Death, and what was that, and what did it look like, and in the 1950s, 1960s-ish, they talked about different kinds of ideas and discussions, and in California, maybe there's a lot of snow, and so things will be canceled. Everyone's stuck. In Russia, no, that's not how it goes. You go to work no matter what. Any sort of activity that you do or anything, whatever that is, maybe it's the train, maybe there's a lot of snow on the tracks, and the train will put the wheels on, the different big wheels on, and start going, start moving. Deaf people kind of thought of that in Russia a long time ago. USR, that's what it is. Many people, there's lots of history that's been passed down, and people take care of that. So they talk about how to take care of these specific things, maybe like bread, and so they would put it in this big machine, and it would till it around, and people would take care of it, and it would be good quality, and deaf people thought of that as well. So it has a few different articles of what some deaf people thought of with the USSR. So another article was talking about Russian drawing. You know that deaf people can be very good at drawing, and passing things around in the deaf community, throwing ideas out there, and art. That is a strong community, art and deaf community. They talk about that, and it was really interesting. Also, sometimes people talk about arguing about hearing and signing. Don't sign, yes, sign, you need to sign, with having maybe a deaf child. And so it gave some ideas of both sides, the opposite sides, and it was kind of an open discussion of that. It's still a struggle here. So that was an interesting article as well. One boy wrote a story about some different hearing magazines that he would open up and read. He collected all of those and compiled them into one thing, and it's called Deaf What's Up. And so maybe that deaf culture, they kind of worked on those things, CDS log, and so it explains a few different articles of that as well. One, History of America, and and the videography maybe with that. 1910 is when it started, and there was so much videography, and deaf people were in that too, and signing, and so they took care of that as well. That was really good and really cool for us to see. And a woman kind of took care of that as well. It was really they were really popular, and talked about America and Europe, and took some different ideas from that as well, and the hearing culture and what's popular with deaf culture as well, and how we're similar in that we need to be supportive of that. And so in America they have that as well, and so you can get more active in that as well. Plus, it has sports, and I love sports. Football. Greece doesn't have football because of the money aspect, and so we talked about, what do we do? Is that good? Is that bad? So we just talked about some different articles, some different pictures, and who won some things and who didn't. And so it has lots of pictures in that. Some law questions, because sometimes people don't have any idea of what really lawyers do or what's going on with that, and so there were lots of questions and work with that as well. There's lots of divorce, like how do you separate things with that, and an article on how do you navigate your way through things like that, and maybe a situation with work. So maybe that is a good kind of popular thing. So talked about law stuff and what you can learn from that as well, which was really good. And lastly, it had for people who are single, maybe not married, man and woman, it has some names and their activities, and who they are, and if they want to get married, and their phone numbers in there as well. And lastly, it has a wonderful kind of joke in there, a deaf joke. And so I thought that was pretty cool altogether. I give lots of thanks for them sending me the vlog and the video and the magazine, so I really appreciate that as well.